So, this topic brought to you entirely from kindafunny.com/forums. If you want your topic to be read on this show, you go to kindafunny.com/Gamescast topic. Thanks to Nick Scarpino.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Don't let us forget to say that, Kevin. We got to say that after this.
It'll be important. So, from our boy, probably a little out of left field here, but do you guys think we'll ever get another PlayStation All-Stars? Who would you want in it? Who would you remove? And tweaks to gameplay.
No, Ellie, Toro, who would never get removed. But
Toro?
This is my personal thing. Yeah,
You'd
that's right.
remove Toro?
Yeah, get rid of him. And his
fuck.
fucking... All he does is steal people's powers. Do something. Have your own identity.
I love Toro. He was my dude.
That's what Kirby does.
I know, and he sucks too.
Kirby, he does suck. Don't talk shit about Kirby. I don't like it.
Yeah, my God.
Kirby always says talk shit.
I'll let you talk shit about a lot of things, but I'm not gonna. Yeah, you do like Kirby.
Holy shit. I need a gif of that. That was good.
I'll see that in my dreams, my nightmares.
I am like way more turned on than it should be.
So it's funny you say this because we talked about All-Stars on Colin and Greg Live today because someone had asked about it in a tip. PlayStation All-Stars sold over 1 million copies. That's fine, but it wasn't good enough for Sony, and Superbot got shut down. And
is that just the PS4 version or PS3 version?
PS3 Vita was crossplay, so I think it just counts as one.
Just one.
Right? Didn't you buy them?
Yep,
it was crossplay.
Yep.
Well, cross-buy though.
Yeah,
they were right.
It was cross everything.
It was cross-play. It was cross-play. Yes, you could play. You could play.
I know it was cross-play, but you bought PS because I'm trying to answer his question. When you bought the PS3 version, you got the Vita version. When you bought the Vita version, you got the PS3 version.
Yes,
I think so. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The game sold respectably. You know, I knew a lot of guys at Superbot, and they were really passionate about the game, and I went down there a lot. Actually, I was down there an inordinate amount of times. To see that game. Because it did really well on IGN. That game fucking murdered on IGN.
Well, it was the Smash Bros of PlayStation.
Yeah, I also think I covered it right.
You did. You did.
But it didn't pan out. It
is cross-buy.
Greg made a really great point. Greg's always made the really great point that they ran to the edge of the cliff and then didn't jump off.
They went 99% there. And
you know what I mean? And would it have helped? I don't think so. I actually don't think that really would have mattered. I think it's a good point. I don't think it would have really mattered because I think that the core of the core of the team that was making that game were a lot of guys that worked on fighting games. The game, Seth Killian came on at the end when he was working at Sony Santa Monica and helped them. Like he's pretty much the most respected name in fighting games. The game was fundamentally and mechanically really sound. I think.
Yeah,
I think the knockout system was. I liked it, but I understand why people didn't because it was a little cheap, it was a little hokey. But that's not the problem either. The problem was that it's not Smash Brothers, and you don't, and It's not the first game that copied Smash Brothers. The Cartoon Network did all those games that copied Smash Brothers.
Turtles had one.
Yeah, like
Onimusha had one.
So in terms of like the arena combat, like the I didn't even see that. Onimusha did.
Yeah, there was an Onimusha game. There was Smash Bros inspired.
Okay,
Smash Bros meets Power Stone.
The problem, Tim, is the cast. And there's nothing they really could have done to that cast to make it any better. Crash Bandicoot being in it and Cloud were probably the only two noticeable misses. And what would have and Snake?
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to happen because Snake was already
already tainted by that.
Yeah,
Smash
and they did get there is a Raiden's in the game, isn't he?
Yeah.
So they did have Metal Gear, some Metal Gear presence in there. But I'm not sure it mattered. I think there's a lot of going back and armchair quarterbacking this game, and I'm just not so sure that it was gonna pan out
regardless. From the jump. Everybody had it pegged as a Smash Brothers clone, and just even if you were never ever gonna play that to find out that it was fun, you just thought it was a Smash Brothers knockoff, and that's something you can't shake.
Yeah, that was my biggest problem was playing it for the first time.
Yeah,
everything leading up to playing it when I was at E3 and I got my hands on the controller, I was like, yes. Do I want Crash? Of fucking course I want Crash. Do I want Cloud? Yes. Snake, all this stuff. Like, yes, I had my issues with the cast and stuff. Did I care? And I knew who the characters were. Did I care about them? Lord, no. I don't care about half of them. But that didn't matter to me. I was getting Smash Bros in a time that I didn't have Smash Bros.
Right.
And that was what was exciting to me. If it was Smash Bros, we would have been playing that game constantly at IGN.
Yeah.
Constantly. It wasn't, though. We played it like twice. And it's like, well... what you said about the clip is so right, and I do think that if it was just Smash Bros, like gameplay-wise,
knock them off the side of the screen with any move,
it would have had way more pickup, and it would have been way more of a success overall. And even if you don't know the characters, Smash Bros, yes, no one could argue that that cast is worse than the PlayStation cast or whatever, and Nintendo does have that legacy and does have all that stuff. No one knew who the fuck Marth was before Smash Bros. Like, there was a ton of characters that you didn't play those games. You didn't know about
You 15
them.
Fire Emblem characters.
Yeah, exactly. But now it's like, it doesn't matter because you just played it because it's fun and you like it. Whereas PlayStation Battle Royale, it's like, I had fun with it, but the very bare minimum of fun. And
Sure.
it wasn't Smash Bros.
It wasn't Smash. I mean, Greg and I really liked that game, and I totally stand by my review. I think I gave it an 8. I think it was a fun game, and I think the game had a lot of heart. I think that it just was. PlayStation's audience is not Nintendo's audience. They don't necessarily play to these games. They don't really even want to see what Kratos looks like in Drake's world. Right. I feel like there was in retrospect, when you really sit down and think about it, I feel like there was just a lot going against that game, in terms of just what PlayStation is and what PlayStation gamers are and all these kinds of things. That said, they did buy over 1 million copies of the game, so they were excited about it. My one regret about it is that Superbot didn't get a second chance at it, because I would have liked to see what they could have done with it. What were their ideas for it? What were, for instance, Dart was going to be in the game and all that kind of stuff, and they got closed down before they could put that in. Not that was like a big deal. It was, who really cares?
Game changer. Dart.
But the beauty of it, and I think that this is what you're kind of alluding to with Smash Brothers, which I think is Smash Brothers is not only a game that makes a lot of money, it's a gateway drug to a lot of people that don't know a lot of these characters. And so when they play as Marth, they're like, well, who the fuck is Marth? And then they see Fire Emblem, and they're like, oh, what is Fire Emblem? And then they look it up. I feel like it sells games. And I feel like Sony's intent with the game was similar. I feel like someone like there's Sir Daniel Fortescue being in the game, it's like, well, are people playing as him? Do people care? Should we do another medieval? Like, I feel it was almost like a marketing kind of thing for them in a way. But yeah, it just wasn't the right cast. I think it was the right developer. I'm not sure any other developer would have done much better. And who would I have removed? No one. I think that cast was fine.
I could have done without Dark Cole.
Oh yeah.
That was true.
Well,
that was
Cole's a great spot. Interesting to me, just because it's like, why was Cole even in that game at all when he's dead? You know what I mean?
Because you can go buy those games right now.
You could, but like it was such a bummer when he. I don't want to spoil a second.
Real quick, clarification on my point. Cross-buy if you bought PS3.
Not
if you bought Vita, you were fucked.
Right, okay.
Okay.
So I don't know. I wouldn't remove anyone. Who would I add? I mean, there's a million people I would add. I did a bunch of stories about characters that I think would have been fucking funny as hell. And I think Ethan Mars was the one I wanted.
That was the best. The Ethan Mars one was the best. Go look at that
from
podcast
Heavy Rain.
video.
Yeah, which is so awesome.
His special was just the screen went black and he woke up and everybody was gone. He had an origami figure in his hand,
which was like brilliant. I'm like, I remember saying like, just take the idea.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it was just wrong place, wrong platform, wrong audience, wrong everything. And I think that considering all of that, it did pretty well. But it's always going to be a punchline. And, I think we've come to accept that.
Yeah.
But will you see another one? No. Definitely not.
Oh, man, it's fucking heartbreaking.
They should have stuck with the original name of the game, by the way. Title Fight.
Oh, yeah.
Title Fight. Wow. I
forgot that leak and
that's an awesome double entendre. Like you call it PlayStation Title Fight or something like that. I think it's like such a fucking cool name, much better than All-Stars Battle Royale. When I saw that, I was like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Plus Fat Princess was in it. She's awesome.
I remember when that first screen leaked and it was just Sweet Tooth standing on what looked like a Final Destination. I was like, shut up. Oh my God. And then I played it.
The fake screens leaked too, right? Remember, wasn't there fake screens that made it look like it was like a Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
Like not who makes Mortal Kombat? I can't even think of the name.
NetherRealm.
Okay, I was gonna say that. Neversoft. I was getting confused. That was the It was. No one expected that game to be what it was. That was the thing about it. Everyone expected it to be a 2D Street Fighter game. I remember.
Yeah.
Wait, expected what?
When Title Fight started leaking, because remember, a lot of shit leaked about that game like early on.
Lots of it
from Paul Gale.
Yep. The Paul Gale Network.
Just some dude that just knew everything about the game. And the expectations based on what people were seeing and hearing about it was that it was going to be a traditional 2D fighting game.
2D fighter, yeah.
Like
really?
Yeah, and then
from moment one, I remember it being Smash Bros. Like at least from the first thing I remember was that image of Sweet Tooth on what looked like Final Destination, and it was just like
the first one was him, an image of Sweet Tooth 3D model on like green checkers. Like it was like him in the render model.
Yeah, and it was being rendered and it was zoomed in, so it made the character models look huge. And so people were like, "Oh, this." I remember being like, "It's gonna be like Mortal Kombat."
Yeah.
I think some of the screens that leaked were actually fake too. But no one going into the game. I remember because I went to the event when they announced it and they revealed it.
Goldfarb, right?
Yeah, me and Goldfarb, and I remember there was some third-party PR person that was like getting mad at me because I was like trying to like sneak around and see if I could find anything about it. Because they had I remember they had these portraits of they had a portrait of Fat Princess and Sweet Tooth and all these things, like these great pictures of them. And we still didn't really quite know what to expect. And I remember walking in and it was Smash Brothers. And I don't. People might change their minds now or think about it differently, but I remember back then there was no expectation that that's what it was going to be. At least when it was title fight. When we got closer to the reveal, then information started coming out that suggested that. But
all right, Fatboy95 Mario.
Yep.
What's kind of funny's opinion on modded versions of games like Project M and Smash Bros. Brawl?
Live your life, have fun.
Yeah, do you?
it's cool.
I'm a fan of it. I like that there's now a huge culture, specifically on YouTube, of people like making videos about the different modded games and seeing what you could do in those games.
Yeah.
On PC specifically, like all the GTA mods. Holy
Oh my god,
shit.
GTA mods are awesome.
They're insane, and they're just fun, and they just make cool shit happen. Like the frozen characters in GTA. That's funny. It's
haven't
funny
seen
to
that one.
watch. In terms of Smash Bros, oh man, I used to mod the shit out of it, out of Brawl. And Project M, I was never the biggest fan of because I prefer Brawl over Melee, just in terms of having fun and
Tripping.
shit. And don't prefer. I like that was taken out of it, but I never really got too deep into Project M. And I think a big reason for that, even more so than me preferring Brawl, is the fact that my friends all played Brawl. So it's like I wasn't about to practice and play a modded version of a game that my group of people wasn't playing. But overall, I think mods are cool. Oh, this is a little different than mods, but like ROM hacks. Like back in the day, playing like Super Mario World, like just completely. It's like what Mario Maker is now, but people just make full Mario World games. I played the shit out of those. I probably played through like 20 full created games from random people making shit. Mm-hmm.
And that I'm glad developers are embracing.
Yeah, no, I mean,
More
that's
so
huge.
than usual.
Ryochi Finn asks, what kind of game would you make about Portillo?
Endless Runner.
Yeah.
Strategy role-playing game, turn-based.
Mm-hmm. What's the plot?
The plot of his life, which is nothing. I don't know. And realistically, like a side-scroller platformer, I think it would be fun.
Would he be on all fours or?
Yeah, that's why the Endless Runner works. Him just and he's got
Yeah, but you're making an endless runner, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, well, whatever. I'm putting trophies. I'm putting on Vita.
All right, well,
So then it's okay. All right, I like that. I'd fuck with the platformer. I'd want you to make a platformer. I want you to concept it out and come up with a Portillo platformer.
I've always wanted to just make a platformer generally. So.
I want it to be a 16-bit platformer.
16-bit, I was thinking 8-bit, but we can do 16. We can do 16-bit.
I feel like 16 would be,
but
more
early
fitting to him.
16-bit. I don't want to do any of that fancy shit.
Yeah, no.
No
That-
fancy
that,
shit.
That good.
I'm thinking more Super Mario World, less Donkey Kong Country.
sounds
3.
Oh,
That
yeah,
sounds
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect.
Let's do that. B-Town Davers, Persona 5. What would you like to see carry over from the past games, and what would you like to see changed, Greg?
Well, I already know that Igor is there, so I'm set. Don't worry about it. Getting up
Igor
in
the
that
cat?
velvet fucking room. No, he's not the cat, Tim. Jesus, sort of.
Who's the cat?
We don't know the cat. Well, actually, I'm sure there's some site that has the cat's name, but I haven't looked into it. That meow.
He knows the cat.
Meow. I mean nothing. The reason Igor's there because it's the whole Persona thing. Great, whatever. He'll be there. Velvet Room will be there. Fine, good. The rest of it, I don't want anything carried over. Go do your thing. Tell me a new story. That's what's great about Persona. Drop you and tell you a new story, and then you get the side stuff like Dancing All Night or Arena that'll bring all the worlds together. And hey, here's this crossover
Dance
that's
All
making
Night,
new
yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
Have you played a Persona besides 4?
yeah, 3. And then I started Q on DS, but I did not like the first person part of it. But I do love the fact that it's the Persona 4 universe, which was weird.
Okay. This is for you, Colin, specifically.
Oh dear.
Ricky Vargas,
sorry.
007. It's not for
is
you.
he mad at
I
me?
just can't wait for your,
Oh,
your responses. Vectorman reboot. Do we need it?
Jesus
And
God.
does
No.
Sega need it?
No,
that's the last thing they need is a Vectorman reboot.
I
Although
used to think Vectorman was the fucking coolest thing.
Vectorman's pretty.
Like when I was like, I must have been 7. I remember being at Toys R Us and seeing it, and I was just like, holy shit. They had it on one of those endless like video demos that would just loop over and over, and there'd be a lot of explosions as transitions. Oh, it was good.
They had a lot, and it was the Sega Genesis collection that really introduced me to some of these or reminded me that some of these exist. They just had so many fucking random, let's hope this becomes something games.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
so many of them.
Throw it at the wall games.
Yeah, and I remember, and not that they're necessarily bad. Vectorman's not a bad game. But I remember being a kid, like a Super Nintendo kid, and being like, "What?" Like walking through the Toys R Us thing and being like, "What the hell is going on over here?" You know, like what are these games? And then go over to get my ticket for whatever the hell RPG I was buying at the time. I just Vectorman's one of those games. What was the game when you were the star? You know what I'm talking about?
On Genesis?
Yeah.
And you were the star?
Yeah, you were
Give
star.
Give me some of the gameplay.
It was a side-scrolling.
And you're just bouncing around as a star?
Yeah, what Starmie or no? That's a Pokemon. I'm gonna find this fucking. I'm finding it. Go on to the next one.
Okay. Is it in the collection?
Stark.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Starkey. Something.
Trevor Starkey.
Nope.
No, Starkey Trevor.
I see it in my head.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because that game was actually really fun. I'm gonna try to find it here.
That was driving me nuts.
God.
Okay, back to Vectorman.
Yeah. Please.
There was a
sucked.
reboot. Did it ever come out
Not that I know.
on
I
like the
don't know.
PS2 gen?
Was there?
Yeah.
I'll look into that.
Look into
Fatal
it.
Labyrinth. That was a fucking jam. Fatal Labyrinth. That was a really early Genesis game. Rise Star.
Rise Star. Yes. Let me see it. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
That was another one of those games where I was like, all right. But when I played it on a Genesis collection, I was like, this is fun.
Yeah. It
It was one of the few games I played longer than I had to.
Vectorman was
I
PS2
was
and
getting
it
the
was
trophies.
canceled, yeah.
Okay,
Never
it was
came
canceled.
out.
Yeah.
Unseen 64's got the scoop.
I just remember seeing images of it.
Vectorman would have been cool. Vectorman would be cool to see now, which is the disparate. I'm using the word disparate a lot. Parts that would go apart from him and then come back, and what would that look like on a PlayStation 4? Would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because it looked
Fancy.
it did look fancy.
It
on the
reminded
Genesis.
me of Donkey Kong Country, but for Genesis.
Sure.
Corey Christensen. When will we get more PS2 games on PSN?
I don't know.
What's their deal, man? This upsets me.
I feel like there's trepidation about it because, well, we talked about this with Microsoft's backwards compatibility with Xbox One. Very consumer friendly, very smart, gets you good buzz and good word of mouth, but might affect your ability to release old collections of games now. Not that they have a huge
Back catalog.
back catalog of games that people want, I guess, at this point, but because everything that people want is available. But it was injurious to them maybe in going back and doing those kinds of things. And my inkling tells me that Sony might be looking at some of these things, at least with their first party games, because they cannot control what everyone else is going to put on it. Same with Nintendo's conundrum with the Virtual Console. Everyone's like, where are the fucking games? And they're like, well, we don't own these games. I don't know what you want from us. Is that they're looking at this and being like, well, why would we put out all these PS2 games when we can just release them as collections or make people buy them again? You know, and in terms of like, and charge $20 instead of $10. I don't want to be that cynical, but I feel like there might be an economic reason for it. Also, there might not be a huge drive to put PS2 games on there because they might not be selling very well, you know? And, you know, if someone wants to put a PS2 game on there, they might be like, okay, like Sony goes to publisher X and they're like, you want to put PS2 games on here? And they're like, all right, well, give us some data, how your game's selling. They say, they're like, no, we're good. Because they have to re-up the ESRB rating. They might have to do some QA testing. It's not cheap to put a game on there. They don't just give them the game and they're like, here it is. You know, they have to make sure it works. And everything's all good, so that costs a little bit of money. Are they going to make that money back? There's all these questions to be asked. So I feel like PS1 and PS2 classics are slowing to a halt because there's nothing else to really be put out there that's going to sell. You know,
Yeah.
There's certainly PS2 games that would sell, but they're newer enough where they can be like, well, let's do an HD collection. So it's cynical, but I feel like that's probably. I don't know if you agree, but I feel
No,
like
I
that's
do. I
probably
think you're
the reason.
nailing it. I bet it's just the return on who's buying these things, who's playing these things, who actually cares as much.
I was shocked that Rockstar Rockstar has the biggest PS2 classics with 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. And I was shocked. I was fucking shocked that they did that. So I was like, why didn't you just release them with trophies?
Right.
You
You
know what I
already
mean?
went through the business of putting them on the iPad. Fucking put trophies on them,
like-
slap them out there.
Yeah, that showed me that Rockstar is just in it to give you games, and they can't really be bothered. You know, they're like whatever. Because they could have sold millions of copies of a GTA collection on PS3 and Xbox 360. And I would love to have a reason to go back and play GTA 3 and to go back and be like, oh god, this game's ugly.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't really have that reason. There's trophies are that reason.
Yeah.
You know, trophies are the reason to go back and play anything.
They're the reason for the season.
They're the reason to live.
The final question of the day comes from the Tyler Hudson. How long does the game have to be out before you can openly drop spoilers about it?
Oh god.
It's
According to our fan base,
Never.
Yeah.
You can never do it. You are all one day away from playing that 10-year-old game.
I don't know. I don't think there's a hard set rule. Or hard and fast rule. I feel like it's the game. I feel like it's the ubiquity of the game.
It's contextual completely. Like something like Final Fantasy VII. It's like people fucking know what happens in that game. Like you can talk about that.
Tifa falls
What
in.
happens in Final Fantasy? I don't know. Some other shit. Like a more recent one.
Who cares?
Exactly.
Well,
Nobody gives a fuck.
But what I'm saying though is
What happens in Lightning Returns? Nobody knows. Literally, no one knows. Clement's probably played 1,000 hours and has no idea what happened.
But Arkham Knight. When can we talk about Arkham Knight?
Right, exactly.
Completely
No, we're not
openly.
going to actually do it, Kevin. Calm down. Yeah, I know. That's a great question. I would say, next year sometime.
Yeah, I
In
would
the
say at least
spring
a
when we come
year.
around.
So does a sequel need to come out, or is it just like
Even that, people were getting mad at them for showing the trailer for Arkham Knight where in the beginning Joker's dead. Like they showed that at E3, right? And everybody's like, it's like, well, guys, the end of Arkham City was a long time ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want them to do?
And they're interconnected.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a moving scale because my mind first came to me. I was like, all right, how ubiquitous is the game and how big is it, right? And I was like, okay, so Final Fantasy VII was what came to mind too. I'm like, this is a famous moment with Aerith dying, and everyone knows that Tifa didn't die. Cloud didn't really even say anything. So I feel like there's something about that where I was like, all right, so ubiquity, that's one thing. Like it's like an Empire when Vader proclaims to Luke that he's his father. I'm like, okay. I asked specifically about that question on Game Over Greggy's show, I think a while ago, where I'm like, at that time, how long was that spoiler expected to be kept secret? It reminds me of like The Sixth Sense, right?
Yeah.
But it's not so much that, it's also about how prolific the game is and where it is in people's minds in terms of how good it is, and then you have to kind of combine that with the time. And the example that comes to me for that is The Last of Us. There's a significant secret in The Last of Us that is still, two of them actually, that's a great point, that are still not really allowed to be talked about, even though the game's over 2 years old.
We just talked about with Xavier Woods / Austin Creed yesterday. We got to that point and danced around it. Whereas I thought today it was interesting that you pulled up on Infamous Second Son. I was like, well, if you're gonna play Infamous Second Son, you played Infamous Second Son.
That's true.
If you gave a shit about that, you gave a shit about that. Whereas Last of Us, I think it's a great example of it's so good. Even Gone Home, like I'll dance around those things, right? Of like those games are so important that if you don't know, you should go play them.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas
That's a good
Infamous,
point.
yeah, Cole's not in it.
Yeah, Cole's on.
Cole's really
Second Son.
dead.
He really
Okay.
is dead, and it was the fucking worst disappointment of my entire life.
Battle Royale?
Exactly, that's what it
That's what I was saying was that I was so confused because All-Stars came out a year after Infamous 2. They put Cole in them, and I remember us reading into that, especially with the commercials. I'm
He's
like,
not
yes,
dead.
Cole's not dead. Like
I'm making him a thing.
yeah, and I was like so excited about that, and I was playing Second Son, waiting for 15 hours for Cole to show up. At the very end, I'm like, yes, it's gonna be Cole. Like Augustine's gone, it's gonna be Cole. Augustine was a great villain, but I was like, it's gonna be Cole. And then the game just ends. I'm like, you have to be fucking kidding me. You know what I mean? Like, why is he in All-Stars? Nonetheless, I digress.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 31 of the Kind of Funny Games cast. Tim Gettys, Colin Moriarty, Greg Miller, coolest dudes in video games. You're familiar with all this stuff. See you next week. Thank you for being cute.